Hello, welcome back to Fallout 76. Now, some of you may have noticed that I didn't really cover raids. I did have a stream looking into the raid system when it first came out in the PTS, but aside from that, I didn't play them at all until a little while ago. Part of it is that there were other things going on, but part of it is due to the raid system itself. Basically, once I'd beaten in the PTS a few times, there wasn't anything new to see. The only reason to play it would have been for the rewards, and I'm not really someone driven by rewards. Let me say up front that I don't hate it or even dislike it. This is not a video trying to trash on raids. The point is that the design philosophy around raids is different to the rest of Fallout 76. And I think this is worth discussing because I can't be the only one who's noticed this. So let's talk about how the raid system differs from the rest of the game. I've often said that the unique feature of Fallout 76 that stands out compared to other MMOs is that it's a comfortable game. You log in and spend a few relaxing hours doing whatever you want, whether it's building a camp or doing events or just emoting with other players. A major factor in the comfortable nature of the game is that it's surprisingly egalitarian for new and old players. Basically, after you hit level 50, all players are pretty much equal. There are legendary perks, but other than those, everybody gets access to the same weapon drops, has the same chance to get legendaries, and you can participate in pretty much every activity even at low levels. I've previously shown footage of a new character participating in a Scorch Queen Beast event, straight out of the vault, and doing expeditions at close to level 1. Basically, the only real difference between a veteran player and a new player is that the veteran player just knows the game systems better and has better gear because they've had more chances to acquire better gear by playing the game for longer. But raids don't quite fit with that philosophy. Firstly, you have to be fairly powerful to even participate. A low level is not entirely useless. In most of the phases there's things you can do to help, even if you can't do much actual damage. This goes especially for the drill section where you need to gather fuel. A level 1000 will die to one hit anyway, so they're just as weak as a level 1 character. But at the very least, you have to know how the phases work in order to contribute. Normally in Fallout 76, you learn how to play events by just participating. You might die a lot early on, but you just revive and you'll eventually learn how it works through trial and error. Raids are different in that you only get one life in each phase, so the stakes are a bit higher. You do get to watch another player after you die, so players unfamiliar with raids can learn by looking over someone's shoulder. But because teams only have 4 members, every member is important. There are sections, like the first sentry bot, where a single highly optimized player can carry the entire team by themselves. But generally speaking, raids require every player to carry their own weight at least. That then leads to some players in raid groups kicking out players who they assume will be dead weights. I've personally seen a level 28 join the raid group I was in and get kicked. From looking at the subreddit, there was a bug early on that allowed 2 teams to play at once, so you had 8 players in the same raid instead of just 4. And it looked like a lot of people actually found that more fun, at least partly because an individual player didn't influence the result as much as it does with only 4 players. Even now, it's not uncommon to see posts on Reddit reminding players that level is not an indicator of how well someone will do in a raid, and I can confirm this from my own personal experience. I'm level 1900 now, but because the raids are a bit different from what we had in the PTS, I was a complete dead weight in my first few raids. I'm lucky that I had a very advanced gear already, so it didn't take me very long to adjust and create a set of specialized armor to help me survive. But imagine you're a new player. How the hell are you supposed to learn to play raids? If you took part when the raid system first came out, then everybody was just as new. So mistakes and not knowing what to do were more acceptable. But now most people playing raids are pretty knowledgeable, and they expect raid players to know what they're doing. This is a problem. It divides the player base into those who raid and those who don't. And the player learning how to do raids will feel completely useless and discouraged from playing them. I got the entire team giving me thumbs down in my first raid after coming back, because I died immediately in the first 2 sections. I suspect that it's due to lag-based issues, but that doesn't change the fact that I died immediately. And I was someone who played during the PTS and had decent knowledge of how the raids work, and some idea of which weapon types are effective in different situations. Now imagine that you were a completely new player, just trying to get into raids. You basically have to use YouTube or online guides on how to play. It is a lot more fun to learn things naturally, but if you try that in raids, you'll be headbutting a wall for a fair while. Obviously, following a guide or using an optimal build makes raids easier, but it does devalue them as a gameplay experience. At that point, the raids simply become an obstacle to be overcome, in order to get to the prizes. Not something to be experienced, just something to be overcome. And this includes having the right gear. Up to now I've been playing as a low health character. Normally I run a full set of unyielding Sentinel's gear. And yes, it did take me forever to get 2 good stars on each armor piece. Combined with Serendipity and Nerd Rage, that was usually good enough to avoid dying more than once every few sessions. But with the Raids update, I was literally getting one shot by the robot in the first stage. I think that this is due to lag based issues, but I'm generally finding myself a lot more fragile than I used to be. I also have a full Overeaters Union set with emergency protocols, which reduces your damage by half at low health. Normally that was good enough in events and daily ops to keep me alive long enough to heal any damage I might take. Basically I never died in power armor. But again, against the first robot I died immediately. It was like my power armor was made of paper mache. Okay, so maybe it was a bit too much to expect to tank the damage as a bloody character. So far everything was playing like in the PTS. I also found bloody to be untenable back then. Although I'm pretty sure I wasn't getting one shot. So I went full health, and for good measure I maxed out endurance and gave myself Life Giver for even more health, plus Bullet Shield for extra ricochet. This is with a full Union Overeaters set. I'm pretty sure that this is a bug, but I'm getting absolutely smashed even while I'm spamming Stimpaks and using a vampiric weapon. This is definitely more damage than I was seeing in the PTS. There is a definite difference. But I also happen to have collected a bunch of Sentinel Union pieces. So I tried that, and it lasted a bit longer, but even spamming stims was not good enough. This might be the Sentinel bug at play, because I expect it to be decently survivable with a full Sentinel's power armor set. But obviously I'm still way too fragile, even with a vampiric weapon, but I'm pretty sure lag is affecting things. So the only thing left to do was to craft a full troubleshooter set. It's stupid, but hey, if it works, then it's not stupid. I spammed 1-star legendary armor pieces until I finally learned how to craft troubleshooter modules. Took a fair while, but now armed with a full set of troubleshooters and Sentinel's Union power armor, plus some explosion reduction pieces, I finally managed to last more than a few seconds. I'm still needing to spam Stimpaks, but I can now actually survive against the robot. Luckily this set is good enough to survive the latest sections too, so I can do the entire raid with just his power armor. But this is a problem. Basically, if you want to participate in raids, you have to create a specific set of gear. The way the raid system is designed, it forces you to play a certain way just to get past the first stage. This is bad. One of the great features of Fallout 76 is that you can play your way. Maybe like the power of bloody builds, or you prefer full health power armor, or you might want to go ghoul when that feature releases. The point is that the game allows you to play however you like. But raids ignore this principle. Everybody ends up gravitating towards the same type of build, and you just lose that variety of playstyles. So we're looking at most people using power armor and an auto axe or Gatling plasmas. And because you end up needing to invest resources to create the gear you need to do raids, you see raids as activities that you do primarily for the rewards. Raids just become obstacles to get past instead of being fun activities in their own right. And because they're always the same, once you know how to do them, you just have to do the same thing every time. So they will be interesting while you're learning how to do them, just because there's a challenge involved. This will take at least a few times, depending on how good your teams are. But even if you're learning them organically, and without looking up guides, it really shouldn't take too long to get a handle on how to play them. At that point, raids will become trite. So what happens after that? Well, it becomes all about the prizes. And I think it's pretty obvious that the designers assumed this would happen. Because at the moment, raids are the only way to get those 4-star legendary modules. But let me ask the players doing raids, are you doing them for the gameplay, or are you doing them for the rewards? I'm pretty sure that most people will admit that it's for the rewards. This is how you end up in a situation where a lot of people are just doing the first stage over and over again. Why? Because once you've invested in getting the right build, and you know how to play that first boss, it's very easy to beat it. So the optimal strategy is to do that first stage over and over again, instead of doing the full raid. The Ghoul update will make the entire platform electric, so using the auto-axe is a lot more difficult, but I'm pretty sure that you'll still be able to solo it in other ways. So the end result is that you'll still get people repeatedly grinding the first stage for the rewards, or using glitches to bypass the time-consuming sections. And because you're now doing the same thing over and over again, it will become repetitive and boring. Allow me to suggest that this is exactly the opposite of how you want players to see the game. It should not be about the grind. Players should be encouraged to play it because it's fun, not because special rewards are being dangled in front of you. That philosophy is more appropriate for games like First Descendant. For those of you who don't know this game, it's an MMO that's all about builds and combat. On paper, it should be the direct opposite of what Fallout 76 is. But when it comes to raids, I'm finding the design to be almost exactly the same as the void ships you find in First Descendant, even though we're comparing games that have completely different mindsets and design philosophies. So void ships are self-contained dungeons that you traverse through and fight intermediate bosses, and finally the big boss. Pretty much exactly like raids. And just like raids, you get a chance at a special reward. For raids, it's 4-star legendaries. And for First Descendant, it's the components to get a new character or a pet. And in both cases, you're looking at small probabilities. And there's no other way to get those special rewards. So players grind those until they get what they want. It becomes purely about how fast you can run the dungeons. Because again, the dungeons are just obstacles standing between you and the prizes. And you repeat them over and over again until RNGesus grants you the rewards you want. The design philosophy is exactly the same for both sets of dungeons. And the result is the same for raids and void ships. By the time you have the prizes you want, you will be so sick of them that you'll never ever want to do them again. They become dead content. This fits well with the philosophy of First Descendant. The whole point of that game is to constantly upgrade your power in order to access increasingly more difficult content. But this is not what Fallout 76 is like, and the problem I see with adding this type of mentality to Fallout 76 is that it's a slippery slope. Up to now, Fallout 76 has had a remarkably even playing field, like I talked about in the beginning of the video. You don't need to do raids in order to play the rest of the game. Keeping them optional is a good thing, but it does lead to the situation where the only situation you really benefit from 4-star legendaries is in the raids themselves. It's like I pointed out when talking about the caravan system. The rewards for doing caravans were things that enabled you to play the caravan system better. Essentially do caravans so you can do caravans. At some point, that's not going to be enough to keep players doing raids, even if you account for the fear of missing out, and they will be abandoned. We've seen the same thing happen to a lot of other repeatable content in the game. Nobody does daily ops after getting all the plans. Nobody's doing expeditions to the pit. And the only people still doing expeditions to Atlantic City are people that can't do raids but want XP and legendaries. Raids will end up the same way eventually, and the obvious temptation will be to make the rewards useful so people keep playing raids. That means increasing the difficulty of the base game to give the rewards a purpose. 4-star legendary enemies are already in the pipeline. So the game world will get enemies that I'm guessing will either require teams of players to take them down, or someone with 4-star legendary gear. And with the next update releasing player ghouls, it's looking like ghouls will be much more powerful than the standard humans. So that's another power creep in the pipeline. Each of these steps is a small one for veteran players. And let me be clear that I'm not saying this because I'll be disadvantaged. I'll be fine, I can already grind raids. It's the new players that will be affected by these changes. Remember what I said about Fallout 76 being remarkably egalitarian. You just had to reach level 50 and you were on the same playing field as level 1000. The major difference was the understanding of the game and having better gear from spending more time in the game. But if this power creep continues, the new players will need to hit level 50, then grind to get the necessary gear to at least survive in raids, then grind raids even more to get 4-star gear. Only then will they be in the same playing field as veterans. The grind will become mandatory instead of optional, and in my humble opinion, this is bad for the game. Let me be clear that at the moment, this is not the case. I'm projecting forwards from what we know. But simply put, if the situation is not approached with a lot of care, Fallout 76 runs the risk of losing its most distinctive feature and becoming just another MMO. All games that survive and stand the test of time have a niche that they live in. And Fallout 76's niche is that it's a chill, comfortable game for fans of Fallout. The beauty of Fallout 76 is that players that grind like hell are not super powerful compared to a player that spends most of the time decorating their camp, and occasionally doing an eviction notice or two. And that egalitarianism, I believe, is something that should be prized and preserved. Like I said at the beginning, I'm not trying to crap on the raid system. I applaud the efforts that devs are putting towards adding new content. What I'm trying to do is to remind them about what makes Fallout 76 special.